Hello, everybody. So, as if you couldn't tell already, we're doing something a little different today. I'm sorry, the camera is here, but the screen is up here, so I'm looking at the screen right now. If you saw me talk about this on Facebook, or if you followed my Instagram, you know that I am trying to sculpt a alien maquette, sort of just a reference. I've got a start. I've got basically like the basic planes laid out, the basic shape of the face. But today I wanted to spend some time trying to finesse it a little bit more. And, like to me, this is like mummified version of what I'm going for. It's very simplistic. And like today might be like, first of all, evening it out, making sure it's as symmetrical as I want it to be, making sure all the masses are where I want it to be and the voids are where I want them to be. But then like going in and maybe trying to like just block in some very basic details, like where's the brow, where are the lines, the wrinkles on its face, where's, just get like dial in a little bit more. I'm going to put up a huge and important disclaimer, which is I am not a sculptor. I have not sculpted with clay, like this kind of sculpting, in probably since college. So we're talking more than 20 years ago. And even then, that was never my focus. Like I was way more of a pen and ink, pencil, and a little bit of painting guy. I was never a sculptor. I took some ceramics classes, which is totally different. Making pinch pots is different from this. And I did some sculpting in my first job out of college, which was at a medical device manufacturer where I had to sculpt like basic head shapes, but there was nothing intricate about it. It was more just gross anatomy as opposed to getting into the details. All that meaning this is not my ambition with this when it gets done, is not for it to be professional level. My ambition for this is for it to be talented amateur level. That's the bar. That's the bar I'm going for. And I'll be very satisfied if I even hit that modest bar. Why am I doing this? I've never done this before for any of the previous DvsMs. Well, there is in DvsM 1979, there's a couple reasons I'm doing this. First of all, there's a very specific alien we're going to see a lot of views of for pages and pages. And one of my little pet peeves, or at least something I hold myself to in comics, to be honest, I don't even really notice if other people aren't doing it. But for me, I don't like like characters to look different panel to panel, page to page. I want them to look consistent. And to get this guy dialed in right, where you can, like, he looks in terms of just basic facial structure the same panel to panel, page to page. I really would like to be working from a reference. So I'm being consistent. The other reason, and this is almost more so, there's in the sequence that he appears, the lighting is very weird. It's very directional. It's actually kind of bi-directional. There's two light sources. So it's really figuring out like where are the shadows going to be falling on his face while he's doing different things and moving around this environment. Now I have human characters in that scene too, but I've drawn humans my whole life. Like that, it's like less weird for me. I mean, basic facial anatomy, facial structure, it's like I've got I would hope, a pretty good handle of that. But alien faces, alien facial structure, what an alien head looks like from different angles, I don't have a lot of experience with that. And in the previous DvsMs, you never really saw the same face over and over and over from different angles. You would see like multiple, like for example, in 97, there were maybe a dozen different aliens that you saw running around in that canyon. And it wasn't often that you saw the same one over and over and over. You're just like, you're getting glimpses of different areas of the battlefield and like different aliens doing different things, which freed me up to be completely loose about how they all looked. And I didn't have to worry about like, okay, I already drew this guy. How does he look if he turns his head? How does he look if he looks up or looks down? I didn't have to really worry about that so much. I didn't do like the standard, where you do these character setups where you do them from the side and the front and the back and, all these. I was just kind of freehanding aliens for each scene. I'm not going to be able to get away with that in 79. Anyway, that's all the reasons I want to do this. It'll give me a little bit more confidence when I'm drawing. It will make, I think, him look a little more consistent. And most of all, it's going to help me with my lighting. Once he's done, even if it's only roughly, even if it's only crudely, as long as the basic face shape is there that I'm going to go with, I can take out my flashlight or whatever and, get a sense of like how light is falling on his face. So for anyone who's never done this before, I've got my armature, Arizona Art Supply, $15 or something. I have my old sculpting tools from my ceramics class, so get to reuse those. I have my non-drying oil clay, so this will be soft forever. I had originally bought air dry Sculpey, which I realized that's a mistake, because first of all, I'm going to be working on it little by little over days, and I don't want to be building wet clay over dry clay. Like I just am worried about whether that would work. And second, I got this armature and I realized like if I get halfway into this and realize like, no, this is garbage, I need to start over. And now the clay's dried on this. Like how hard is that going to, like, can I break that off? Like what's even going to happen? Am I going to have to buy a new armature? So I went just a few days ago and got more different clay. This is plastilina, I guess. I don't know. It's a kind they had that it never dries. It's a little oily. It's a little weird. And it's very firm, but that's good. In fact, as firm as this is, I kind of, now that I'm sort of into this process, wouldn't have minded if it was even firmer, because once you start laying stuff in, it's nice and it's soft when you're building it out and trying to get it symmetrical and trying to get like your basic shape going. That's nice. But once you start wanting to do little things like fool around with the eyes and fool around with the mouth and stuff like that, you want it pretty sturdy. Like it's going to be annoying if you're like, okay, here's his top eyelid, and then you brush it or bump it in a funny way and it like, you've ruined the eyelid that you got perfect. Like I would like it if it was a little sturdier, but again, this is not going to be a finished piece that I'm putting in a museum. This is just basically, this really is just for me. This is almost just like a 3D reference sketch that I can light and look at from different angles when I'm drawing. And by the time I finish drawing this alien in the comic, like this will get scrapped. Like I'll strip the clay off of it and that'll be that. Like this isn't art. This is just an assist. Okay. Anyway, this is the tool I've been using most of all right now. Well, this, and I've got a bunch here. I've been using this for like drawing my midlines and stuff, trying to make sure I'm symmetrical. It's just like a little plastic. It's not really a knife. I mean, it's not sharp, but it's sharp enough to cut clay. And then this guy, which is sort of a fun multi-tool. You've got the point for carving stuff and scratching stuff and doing whatever you need, poking little holes, testing depths and things. But then you have this awesome scooper on the other side for like void. So when I needed to carve out the eye sockets or hollow out the cheeks or whatever, you've got this a nice little metal scooper with an edge on it. Pretty fun. Okay, now let's see what's going on in the chat. We have Squatch. That thing looked a lot bigger in pictures. Well, the camera was close to it. Also, that thing looked a lot bigger in pictures. That's what she said. That sculpture is going to wake you up in the middle of the night before it murders you. It's a little creepy. It's a little weird. I do wish I had bought, these are 2 black marbles. I had bought a bag of black marbles on Amazon to use as eyes. They're way too small. I will probably be bumping up his eye size when I draw him. But again, it's just enough to get me, this is a ballpark. I just need to get a real rough sense. And by the time I finish today, I'm probably only going to stream for an hour, hour and a half tops. Like, my intention is just to get this about as far as I think I can get it with my meager ability and be able to confidently say, good enough for my purposes. And then I'm going to pivot back to drawing, at which point I'll probably call it today. So that's the plan. How much of the body are you sculpting? Head only, waist. I'm going to do this, like, it'll be like neck up. So just enough. That's it. The body, with the exception of their weirdo hands and their proportions, the gray bodies, the entity bodies, as the language of DvsM, are, very human-like. There's little differences, but otherwise they're not super exotic. So that I'm got. It's just the head shape is weird. And especially, like I said, different angles, lighting, all that kind of stuff. What we got here? Thanks, man. This is not impressive. But given the fact that this is not my area of expertise, this is not my art emphasis, I'm satisfied. Like, and again, this is halfway done, I would say. Like, this all, I quit for the day when I was like, that shape's about right. And I like, that's something like that. Now, like I said, today will be sort of finessing. And when I'm, in terms of the clay, it's probably going to be adding like this size, like little tiny, or like the inverse of that, like shaving off little tiny, like we're just dialing in. But just like with drawing, the finesse part can be half the time you spend on it. Like it's people, drawing, anyone who's out there drawing knows how it is. You can get the thing 75% done, your page 75% done in the first 50% of time you're working on it. You know what I mean? And then you spend that last half of your time spent dialing in the little 25% of details that make it pop. It's the same with, I think, sculpting. This, as simple and as crude as it is, this was probably, I don't know, an hour and a half work or something like that. I'm expecting to spend, that's why I said today, maybe hour and a half, another hour, an hour and a half, trying to, finesse it a little bit. I don't know if there are any brothers in Maple in here. Let's see here. Paul and his old man naps. So I showed it before. It's plastilina. I think this was $15 or something for 4 pounds. I didn't know how much I needed. I would rather have more and not need it than less and get to a point where I'm like out. Asexual. Yes, basically. In DvsM, the entities are, yes. I'm being careful because we'll learn more about them, I think, in DvsM number 5. But where the rubber meets the road, DvsM entities do not have genitals. There you go. Exclusive. Breaking news. Okay. All right. So I'm going to turn away from my keyboard and sculpt a little bit. I will only be occasionally monitoring the chat. I'm hoping you will self-police. And I don't know what I'll talk about while I'm doing this, but I'm going to get a sip of coffee and we're going to get going. I'm all caught up on Andor. I maintain the best Star Wars TV show for me. I don't want to say like it's the best and all the others are worse in a big universal cosmic way, but for me, for my tastes, for what I want to see in a Star Wars, the aesthetic and the writing and all that, Andor is far and away the best. Far and away. Not even close. So that's fun and exciting. I hope it maintains. I hope it like can finish strong. What else? I have one episode left of Dahmer, or what are they calling it? Dahmer, like Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, or whatever. I don't know. Whatever the one is on with Evan Peters on Netflix, which is okay. It's kind of it's all over. Like, I mean, not all over. That makes it sound really inconsistent. It's fine. There are, like Dahmer was back when I was in high school, and I remember reading a lot about it. And there are details that look, I mean, this is always going to be the thing. When you're dramatizing a real thing, you're going to have to make changes. Some of the changes they've made, I'm fine with. It makes sense. Other changes, I don't know. As this is kind of weird. As good of a job as Evan Peters is doing in terms of performance, like it's an interesting performance. He doesn't, to me, look very much like Dahmer, sound very much like Dahmer. He doesn't behave very much like Dahmer. Like, he's playing him kind of as, like, I was joking on my Facebook, like Napoleon Dynamite, but a murderer. Like, that's how he's playing him off. He seems kind of weird and awkward and like, gosh, and like that kind of thing. And when you see Dahmer interviewed, that's not how he comes off. So, like, I don't know. Whatever. But it's effective. I like the fact that they're spending time focused on victims and family too, rather than just Dahmer. I don't think they're romanticizing what he did, though I do think they're pulling punches in a way that some people, myself included, I guess, could not be totally, like, I don't think they're fully, and they can't do it. I get they can't do it. This is what's hard. This is what's hard about like Dahmers or Ted Bundys or things like that. It's really difficult to really make people appreciate what this guy did and how horrendous it really was. And there are episodes of this Dahmer show. I'm not going to say they make him sympathetic. That's not what it is. But there are times where you look at him and you feel like it's a little, you would be forgiven for sometimes watching that and thinking like, the guy's just sort of awkward and wanted to find someone who loved him and wouldn't go away, which is like, okay, that might be a tiny bit of it, but he was also stripping flesh off of people he murdered and then pulverizing the bones with a sledgehammer so then he could dispose of the bones in a way where they wouldn't be identified. Like, I mean, this guy was off the chain. Like, it was like he's trying to lobotomize people in his shitty apartment. so he could have sex slaves forever. And like, so I get like, well, you know, let's humanize him a little bit. There's something to be said for that, but at the same time, like, you can go too far with that and minimize like how horrendous some of this stuff was. And I get that's hard to show in it. This is the problem. If you show people, if you're doing a Ted Bundy thing or a Dahmer thing or, you know, a Gacy thing, whatever you're doing, if you show people the reality of it, no one's going to watch that. It's horrifying. People don't want to see that. They think they do, but they don't. But and maybe, look, granted, my sensitivity is different from most people because of my day job. So I can probably handle a little bit more of the intense content than maybe the average Netflix viewer. Nevertheless, I think they called it a little safely. I think they could have really shown the reality of what he was doing a little more vividly, just to impress upon people. I think if you knew nothing about Dahmer and you watched this, maybe you wouldn't really appreciate what this guy was like. That's, I guess, what I would say. Nevertheless, I'm watching it. I'm enjoying it. I know the families are upset, and I get it. Obviously, it's not moving the needle for me, saying like, well, I can't watch it. You know, that's a complicated thing. But anyway, it's okay. It's not bad. But in terms of like serial killer entertainment, which is a weird thing to say, nothing beats Mindhunter on Netflix, that series. Like, that's incredible. Right now, all I'm doing, it probably doesn't even look like I'm doing much. I'm just trying to even out some of my surfaces and do some more blending. I'm not trying to get it perfect. I'm just enough where when I do some lighting reference photos and stuff, it's not catching in funny ways or misleading ways or whatever. Let's see here. What am I missing? What do you think of the theory that Greys are evolved humans from the future? I think that's a fun theory. I personally don't buy it, but mostly because I'm very I'm pessimistic we'll get that far. I don't want to say my favorite theory because this is the deal with them in DvsM. But it's not that. At least in DvsM, I can tell you that. Greys are not time traveling Homo sapiens from the future. What else we got here? Wait, can you see my ponytail? I don't even know. Do people? I was just thinking I'm about due for a haircut. Last time I went, I had the idea of maybe I'll just chop it, just go back to my normal, like my pre-pandemic normal, which is still longish compared to most people, but not like ponytail long. And I chickened out. I couldn't do it. So I got it chopped to like shoulder length or something, and then it's like maybe I'll work up to back to normal. And now it's about as long as it was when I went and got a cut, I feel like. But now it's too long again. It's mistaken for a woman when seen from the back long, which happened at a restaurant the other night. Okay, let's see. That's right. They screwed it all up. You know what? I think here's the biggest thing about changes they made to him. Now, even if avoiding the whole thing of like how much should you impress upon people what he did, his crimes. I feel the show makes him seem extremely awkward. Like very, like again, like very almost Napoleon Dynamite-esque. And he doesn't come off that way at all in interviews. He seems very normal, and I think that's the key. That's something that's being lost. Like Dahmer in the series, I think you would never mistake for a normal guy. Like he's just intense and weird and awkward. Like, you know, you wouldn't necessarily think like, oh, that guy's a murderer, but you would, that character, you would be like, this guy's weird, like very strange. And yeah, Dahmer was pretty weird, but not that weird. And lots of people, and that's the thing, lots of people knew him and was like, he seemed totally normal. He seemed nice, you know. Evan Peters in the Dahmer show does not seem normal. He doesn't seem like a murderer. He seems like just awkward and like a weirdo. But no weirder, like he seems like, you know, honestly, every weirdo you might meet at a Comic-Con. Like it's, you know, it's that kind of weird. Like normal weird, run-of-the-mill weird, not murdering people in the basement weird. But the point being, when you see real interviews with Dahmer and you hear about people who met him or knew him, they thought he was a little odd. I mean, he wasn't like Bundy, who could totally pass. But he was, you know, I mean, like, you can't be as weird as he is in the show and get an endless supply of guys to come up to your apartment, you know? I mean, he has to be at least semi good at making conversation, semi good with his personal hygiene, semi good with, you know, like he can't be a total lunatic. But... Okay. I think that's all the smoothing I need to do right now before I start screwing around with this. So I'm trying to decide, I'm looking at him and I'm trying to decide what I want to do with this, what I want to add. I got to obviously make that mouth a little more specific. That's just sort of a generalized chunk I took out of it. This is going to be, even though this will be difficult for me because, again, I'm not experienced with this. Let me see. There's a void right there. Okay. This is still going to be way easier than an actual human being, because the way I draw the aliens in DvsM, they have minimal facial features. There's not a lot going. Like, this is already in the ballpark. And if I was pressed for time, and I'm actually a little bit ahead of my drawing this week, which is rare, so I can take some time with this. But if I was behind, like I have been in the past weeks, I might even call it a day and say, like, good enough for my purposes. But since I'm doing this, and since I never get to sculpt much, and since it's like, all right, just for fun, I'm going to see if I can, you know, do a little bit more with this. But basically now I'm trying to decide, like, first of all, is there any, like, again, I'm using the term gross anatomy I want to change. Like, Am I happy with the jawline? Am I happy with like this, what would be the nose, but my aliens don't have nostrils, so but this area. Am I happy with the shape of the occiput, the back of the head up here? Like, or is there anything? Do I want the cheeks hollower? Do I want like above the? So on a skull, you'd have the orbits, you'd have the cheekbone, and you'd have this. You can feel it on the side of your head, this bone that runs back kind of over your ear. It's, I think, the zygomatic arch. Sometimes when I draw these aliens, that's pretty pronounced, and there's more of a hollow. There's a hollow on the parietal side, a little bit more here. Like they're pretty broad on the forehead, but I usually draw them with, like, you can see like an angle. I can even scratch it in. What difference does it make? Like sort of like that. Do I want to exaggerate that more? Do I want to like maybe carve this out a little bit to kind of hollow the sides of the head? I don't know. So that's why I'm just kind of like messing with it right now and kind of seeing, like, if I had to draw this as is, would I be happy with this shape? And that's what I'm kind of debating right now. I also, my aliens don't really have like Adam's apples. They're not super loud. Like they don't have like that kind of voice. So I'm not going to have to sculpt that, but I'm also thinking about, I've already got it like the basic shape here, but sculpting these, like, so these muscles, you're getting a little free anatomy lesson today. I hope my anatomy isn't rusty. I hope I'm not misleading anyone, but the muscles that run, basically, if you go under your ear, there's a long neck muscle that kind of like V's in front of, on either side. That's the sternocleidomastoid, if I remember right. And that I might exaggerate a little bit, because I do like the idea that the aliens are, the way I've always drawn them is they have almost no body fat. Like they're very lean, very wiry. And while they don't have much going on facially, I think you would see maybe the muscles of their neck peeking out above they have sort of a high, like, turtleneck kind of collar on their suit, but peeking out, you would see that. So I at least want to imply that a little bit. That's something I can obviously just draw when I'm drawing. Like, I don't need, but I might try to do that a little bit. So let's see if there's anything before I move on. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, you can't be a total weirdo. And now, granted, and the show, this is one thing the show's very good at. The show's very good showing how many times the police dropped the ball with this guy. Like, he didn't need to have killed as many people as he had. Like, they were sleeping on it. And the show kind of makes the argument that it's because gay Black victims, and that kind of encouraged a kind of a lack of motivation on the police, which is a strong argument can be made for that. And there is one horrendous example of that where one of Dahmer's zombie victims got away somehow, and they called the police and they talked to him, and they returned this kid to Dahmer. Like, Dahmer passed it off as like, oh, he's just my boyfriend and he's drunk. And they brought him home. And of course, as soon as the police left, he like murdered the kid. The kid was like 14 or something. So, like, I mean, that's a thing where it's like, that's one of the things the show is getting right, is showing like how this can happen and how there's some tough answers. But thanks, Paul. I appreciate that. Who can say? Yeah, I think the latter is the big thing. obviously we don't talk about this kind of stuff on the stream much, and I'm not going to change that. But I feel like if I had to bet whether we're going to be able to navigate around environmental collapse and therefore a catastrophic collapse to modern civilization, you know, and I hate to say it, but like I'm not very confident we're going to be able to avoid that. Like that's the thing. Now, do I think humans are going to go extinct as a result? No, I don't think that. But I think there's going to be a big setback, I think, unless things change dramatically. And I'm not seeing it happen. And especially with the rise of sort of weird populism and like this kind of like crazy stuff that's going on politically, I think the will to make those sorts of hard choices to save us all from that gets less and less likely. I don't know. I'm fairly pessimistic. I was thinking about our good friend Corey Kerr the other day and his concerns about social media and algorithms and all these things, and how, you know, basically the computers are taking over and going to ruin our lives. And it occurred to me, like, I worry about that too, and I agree with most of what he says. But for me, it ranks like third in terms of existential threats to humanity. Like, I would love it if that was going to be our biggest problem. I personally don't think. I think the environment's number one. I think the rise of like this kind of far right populism in the modern, you know, world is the second scariest thing. And then after that, maybe like how social media is ruining civilization. But I'll do that for you, Squatch. What does their diet consist of? You might, I can't really reveal that yet because I think that might be touched on in DvsM 5. So I'm looking forward. I saw you on Artcasters talking about the potential of a third part of your series and of Detective Perez, and I am intrigued and excited. Customer because of gaming, yeah. That's the impression, and that's the impression I got. Remember from the time. That's also the impression you get from the series. Is there was a little bit of like, you know, people complaining about him, and a lot of people being like, "Eh, this is gay stuff," or like, "Eh, these are black people," like whatever, and just kind of not like, "This is a shitty part of town. These are minorities. Like, I don't want to deal with this." And there was just a lack of good police work, you know. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful, man. I mean, yeah. Yeah, that was part of it too. Well, and it was still, it's funny, it was the early 90s, but, you know, that was still a tough time. Well, I mean, in parts of the country now, it's still a tough time to be a homosexual, you know, but like then it was even more so. So there were a lot of these people, they'd been basically disowned. Like their family didn't even know what they were doing, you know, because they were just like, oh, you know, he's not welcome here. Like that kind of shit. And like to me, like the equivalent that I saw, like when I was working at the medical examiner's office or interning at the medical examiner's office, was it's like prostitutes, you know, prostitutes would go missing all the time. And who even knew what their real name was? Like that was the problem, because it was just like shadow ethnography that nobody really was involved with or paying attention to. Okay, so what I'm looking at this, and it's still very lumpy and bumpy, but that's fine. I think what I most want to do with this is, I think from about midline, if we're cutting this head down this way, from about midline forward, I want to cut it in harder under the jaw. I think right now do you see how it's very like a gradual kind of, I think on the back, that's fine. But I think on the front, I think starting about, here, let's mark it in. Can you see that line? Yeah, okay. I think that's where the jawline should be. I want the neck from about, can you see that dotted line? Sort of. It's right here. Forward to cut in more. Like I want more of a shadow under that jawline. So that's what I think we're going to do here. And then I have to do that symmetrically. This is the challenge. Like I gotta, whatever I do on this side, I need to replicate on the opposite. So let's see, I'm gonna try my scooper here. Now, I prefer to not overdo it and have to add stuff back. So we're gonna be, you probably saw, like, I was just taking off just shavings, just little bits. Like I'd rather do little by little and then get to the point where it's like, yeah, that, then like, shoop, and like cut it all the way down to the metal and then like add back. Like that's no, that's not the approach. So. This is useful having the monitor here, so I can kind of like look and see from that. See, that's better. I think I also want less of a curve here. I think I want to go closer to almost a 45 or a 90, I guess. Not that dramatic, but I think I do want, let's see here. That's better. I think that's better. Yes, but you probably gathered this if you've been listening to my answers, my cagey answers to questions about the aliens. DvsM 5 is going to be very alien focused. So stay tuned. Any chance we can get the camera closer to the alien? Let me see. My cord to this camera is maxed right now, but I can probably move all of it closer. Let me see how that works. It's a little bit better, I guess. I was having trouble focusing on. When I'm done with the stream today, I'll let him look at the camera and get a better look. Okay, so now I have to repeat what I carved out on this side. See how that, I gotta do the same on that side. So. And again, like, do you see like the tiniest bits? Just that's something I do from my limited modeling experience. Clay modeling, not runway modeling. That I do remember is it's always like smaller adjustments than you think. Like if I want to build something up, if I'm like, oh, that's like too flat, like the temptation when you're starting is to, be like, all right, we'll just, put something like that. Like that's way too much. Like you want to work like with more like, and then flattening that out. It's like small little adjustments. So you'd be surprised like dramatic a difference that makes. Yeah, they're little black marbles. Like I said, should have bought bigger. I wasn't totally sure at that time like how big I wanted to make this. I bought the marbles and then I bought the armature, and the armature, it almost has like a light bulb wire top to it, that there was a minimum size this alien's head was going to have to be. And I didn't want it to be enormous. Like I didn't want to sculpt like, like grapefruit size. First of all, because it might take a while. It might have been easier, actually. It might have been easier to get basic shapes. But then like I knew like those eyes will be way too small. But I couldn't go too small because there's just not enough room to build that up. So in a perfect world, these eyes would probably be 150% bigger. Again, I can draw that, so it's fine. All right, I'm pretty happy with the neck. Now I'm going to try and carve out, like I said, the sternocleidomastoid, or the V shape, muscular V shape on the front of a neck. So I think I'm going to try, I haven't tried this tool yet, and we'll see if this is a mistake. I've got a couple of these. I've got this shaper. It looks like a brush. I don't know if it'll focus on that. But that tip is rubber. Now, I don't know if that's going to be firm enough, but I'm going to try. Let's see if there's a stubbier one. Not really. I'm going to try this. This might not be good for this, but I'm going to try and like carve out that shape I want on the neck. So take my glasses off here. I am slightly nearsighted, and my glasses are more for distance. Yeah, I don't know if this isn't a bad tool to kind of designate what I want. It's not going to have the effect I want though, because that's not going to be great. Okay, it's a start though. I think I'm actually going to go back to this guy. I'm getting comfortable with this guy. Let's see. So this week, I think I might have teased it last week. This week, my buddy Keith Foster, one half of Making Comics with Scott Lost, was going to be on, but he had family stuff to do. So we delayed to, he's going to be on not next Saturday, but the Saturday after that. So. That is a start, but that's not what I'm looking for. what I would really like, this might be, again, I'm kind of learning this, but yeah, this is going to be very much we'll figure out if these things work together. But I'm trying to kind of do a subtle groove and then smooth it out and kind of make it look more like an undulation or whatever. It's not working the way it looks, just like a softened line in it. So what I think I'm going to try and do instead is be more aggressive with this blunted plastic tool. Be a little more aggressive and then kind of clean it up. We'll see. I don't know if that's the way to go. Again, I'm learning this. But I'm trusting, and this is where I'll give myself a rare quasi compliment. Even though I don't have any experience with this, I'm trying to count on the fact that I have basic art ability. And my clumsy first real effort will be at least adequate. You know, that's the hope. The hope is that, you know, it's good enough. Again, I'm going to be entering this in anything. This is just me trying to help myself. Louie. That's better. It's still not great. I'm still kind of learning this, but I mean, definitely the main reason I'm doing this overwhelmingly is for the reasons I laid out at the onset. But a small part of this, and I'm sure that, you know, especially anyone the multimedia types out there, you know, I've been drawing for 37 weeks or whatever. It's nice just to use a different part of your brain creatively, do something a little different. I'm hoping that, you know, it will in some ways revitalize my drawing enthusiasm, or if nothing else, like I think going through this will give me a better like three-dimensional concept of this thing's head in my brain while I'm drawing. And I think the drawing should benefit from that. But all right, what are we looking at here? That's better. We got a little bit. Yeah, that's kind of coming there. What is going on here? What is this? I think, where are we at on time? Almost noon. Where do I want to spend my time? I think at this point, I would like to try and get the mouth and the eyes a little more defined. And then I think then I could be at a point where I'm like, that's good enough. So let's see here. Any cybernetics attached to these aliens? No. Not the ones we're going to see in 79. In the future, probably. And like, again, DvsM 5 is a little weird, but no, they're pretty, all their tech is carried pretty much. This one is the infiltrator type. This is the type that carries the ray gun. There's also going to be a befuddler type. Those are the ones with like the gas, the hallucinogenic gas. The befuddler type like carry more tech, and the way I always have illustrated them is not only are they a good bit taller than the kind of grunt level type, you get the impression they're smarter. They're basically effectively the leaders on the battlefield. The infiltrators are usually taking instructions from the befuddlers. The befuddlers are the ones that, and you can tell when you look at them, they're just a little bit elevated. Their outfits are a little different. They have the fancier tech. They're taller. They seem to be the ones like a little with a little more awareness of what's going on. Again, probably something in the why of all that we'll get into later, but that's still the case with 79. What about the theory we've been here before, meaning we've risen to the height of advancement? You know, that's a fun theory. I don't know if I believe it, but I listened to a podcast a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago now, where it was talking about if there had been an intelligent, like an advanced society on planet Earth in the distant past, let's just like, they weren't even talking about people, before people, like, would we know? And my response was like, of course. But then when they really went into like looking at our level technology now, if you go like, let's say everything stopped right now, okay, like we all disappeared, but everything was left, cities, roads, all our technology, everything. And you do like, remember the Earth is like 4 billion years old, okay? So like, what if you added 1 million years? Like, what would be left archaeologically? And the argument was like surprisingly little. And they talk about like how rarely we even find dinosaur fossils, and how like what, that barely represents anything. But like, if you're talking about 1 million years, 100 million years, maybe like 1 billion years, like, you wouldn't necessarily know anybody, even us, you wouldn't even necessarily know we had been here. And that was a fascinating idea. I mean, it's just a fun thing to think about. Like, could there have been an advanced civilization on Earth before humans even evolved? And what I've always been into, if you're into like the kind of pseudoscience archaeology stuff, Antarctica wasn't always covered in ice. And I've often like, what is under the ice on Antarctica? Would you find any weird ruins? Would you find any weird fossils? What, like, that's a kind of a fun idea. But let's see here. Massage my bald-headed alien live on a stream. Yeah, and not even charging people. The befuddlers have pinstripe pocket. No, they unfortunately no. Yes, we're working. No, this is work. This is work. First of all, anytime I have to deal with Squatch, it's work. I'm on the fucking clock. All right. Okay. Mouth or eyes? I'll let the chat decide. What am I working on first, the mouth or the eyes? I'm going to sip some coffee while you debate it. Maybe drink some water. I'm going to try and open my can of Liquid Death mountain water without getting oily clay all over where I intend to drink. Mouth or eyes? Mouth or eyes? I wish... I'm not going to take the time to do this. I would love to indicate little teeth in his mouth, but I'm not taking that time. I think it's going to be more of a pursed lips kind of thing. Oh my gosh, it's a tie. Someone has to be a tiebreaker. We got to vote for mouth. We got to vote for eyes. By the way, hi, Philip. See, this is, as you work this clay, it softens way up. Like this brick, like I can barely, like that's, but then this that I've been working, it's not as soft as Play-Doh, but it's, so this is where I'm saying like, I could have even gotten like a firmer, like an extra firm clay, just to give myself a little more durability. But I think mouth is winning. Oh well, no, Paul just voted. Paul is voting twice, just like the craziest conspiracy blogs suggest happens. Let's say here. Well, Squatch said teeth, which I'm going to count as mouth, even though I'm not going to do teeth. So I think I'm doing eyes. Oh my gosh, we're tied up again. Someone needs to vote. Someone new needs to vote. By the way, this coming week, I hope you all watched and enjoyed. Of course you did, Comic Fu. I hope you all watched and enjoyed Fast Food Picks Top 5. This coming week, Jim, for reasons understood only to Jim, wanted us to do top 5 animals. I don't know. Rest assured that when we start streaming, I will be asking Jim to explain where that came from, why we're doing it, what the thought was. But but that's what we're doing. Our top 5 personal favorite animals. We ambush each other with top 5 categories. We never know what the next one is going to be, and we're always rotating, like who picks next. So part of me wants to pay him back and pick something even more absurd, like we're doing top 5 colors next time, but I'm not. We're going to do something more conventional. I'm actually very excited about the one that I'm going to suggest for next time, for the time after animals. But next week, top 5 animals. Think about your top 5 animals. The rules were they can't be extinct. I'm moving on to mouth because, I'm not getting a tiebreaker here. Top 5 has not jumped the shark. We always wanted to do a mix of unconventional and obvious top 5s. So this is clearly an unconventional one. And also, you got to pace yourself. Like there's all the obvious ones, one of which I will probably suggest for the next one. You don't want to burn through those in your first couple months. We need longevity. Okay, so entities don't have the most full lips. But they do have a slight bottom lip, like the slightest, just the minimal amount I can get away with to allow some expressiveness and no more. So that's what is going to be the challenge with this, is to try and do the most minimal bottom lip. And I don't know, I might be working too small to do that effectively, but let's see. I'm rolling out a very, very thin thing of clay that will ultimately be a bottom lip. I'm not doing the teeth squatch. It would take forever. I got to get back to drawing. To do the teeth, I would have to do like this little strip I'm rolling and break that up into little tiny, and then like place like this. No. It's too small. I started too small. If I was working like double this size, teeth would be more doable. But... All right. I think I've got my bottom lip. So let's carve some of this off. Now, all right, let's see. I hope my coffee hasn't made me too shaky. Let's see. I'm taking glasses off again. Speaking of modeling, again, 3D. I was noticing, I have some continuing ed opportunities at my day job where if, I do it at the right time and I submit the right worded request, I can get training in different things. And the thing that would really be a nice skill to have, which I do not, and would be a fairly lucrative skill, how does that look? It's getting there. You see the idea. We'll let that sit for a little while and move on to eyes. Would be if I knew 3ds Max. That would be pretty cool. It would allow me to do way more ambitious exhibits at work. It would probably help me, like I could do this kind of stuff virtually digitally, rather than actually go and buy clay and do all that, which is pretty fun. I'm not complaining about that, but it'd be nice to have that ability. And like I said, they pay, like people pay for that kind of skill. I was looking at a litigation graphics position. I think it was in Texas or something. And they wanted a 3ds Max generalist. And the pay range was crazy. I mean, that's what made me sit up and take notice. I was like, what? They would pay that? So I was curious if any of you out there have 3ds Max experience, know anything about 3ds Max. Here's the problem with 3ds Max. It is expensive. That software is ridiculous. Like that, it's like thousands of dollars a year. It's a subscription thing. Which I cannot, like, what I would have to do is, first of all, convince my work that the office would benefit if I had that skill, which I think that's an easy lift. The second thing would be to convince them, like, and you need to get me a subscription to this software indefinitely, in perpetuity, like this, which there's going to be some sticker shock. But I would have to show them, like, these are the sorts of things I could do once I learned it, and really try and sell that. But once I got that, like, if I could talk them into that, if I could say, like, hey, 3ds Max would be cool, and hey, you should get it from me, then I have to learn it. And I've done, like, Googling, like, how does one learn 3ds Max? Assuming, like, there's got to be, like, seminars you can sign up for, right? Things like that. And I'm having, like, it's striking out a lot. It seems like it's like everything else in the world now, where it's like, I don't know, watch some YouTube videos, dude. It's like, so you're telling me, like, this is that desirable a skill, it's that valuable, and boy, I wish this head was. Let's see here. Okay. I'm going to start. What do I want to do with these eyes? You can probably tell just from the way it's roughed in. My intention was to give him sort of an asymmetrical, like, he doesn't have eyebrows, but sort of an eyebrow raised face. Kind of a curious or annoyed face. I think the impression people get if they look at the alien faces in DvsM is they're grumpy, they're mean, and a little sadistic. That's something I tried to show in 97, like when they're killing the Cub Scouts. Like they look like they're having a ball. I'm just trying to get like a basic eye shape in, and then I'm going to add details around it. Let's see here. Yeah, it's like a 3D modeling. You can do anything with it. You can make engines, you can make people, you can make trees. Like, it's just sort of a general, like, 3D modeling program. Let's see here. Yeah. That's another fun rabbit hole was, and again, I don't, full disclosure, when I went to NAU, originally I thought I wanted to be an archaeologist, and that's what I picked at first. I eventually pivoted to forensic anthropology, but like I thought I was going to be an archaeologist, and that's what the first couple of years were oriented towards that. So my default position when it comes to exotic interpretations of archaeological or fossil evidence, like whether you're talking about, you know, whatever it is. I don't want to call out specifics, but like whatever, like I'm usually kind of like whatever. Like it's kind of like for me, like I watched this is a perfect analogy. I watched the first new Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix last night. If you haven't watched it, it's about a girl who got hit by a train. And I'm sitting there wanting to yell at the TV like an old man because you have all these like I've seen what that looks like. I've seen so many crime scenes, so many death scenes, so many motivated, like I've plenty of that with day job. Like every weird configuration of things that can happen to a human body, I've probably seen. You have all these people with less experience, amateurs basically, opining on, these scene photos and opining on like, why would someone, that's the other thing, like, so the accepted explanation for that one was suicide. And you have all like basically the family and stuff saying like, why would she do this? And why would she walk that far? Like all that. And it's like, she's fucking suicidal, man. Like I'm not saying they're wrong. Who knows? Maybe there is more to the story, but I'm just saying like to try to apply like some sort of some logic to say like, oh, it wouldn't be rational for this person who committed suicide to behave in this way. It's like, you're kind of missing, like, they're not in a rational place. Like that's, anyway, it drives me nuts when people who just to be a little blunt about it, don't know what they're talking about, don't have that experience, start like, like weighing in on things that are like complicated. Okay, that said, that's generally how I feel about a lot of this like weird archaeological or paleontological, like if you're talking about like Graham Hancock or people like that who have like these kind of pretty wild ideas about what prehistory was actually like. Not saying he's wrong, it's just like it sometimes drives me crazy because it's like there are actually normal explanations to this. That said, the Sphinx and the erosion on the Sphinx is sort of interesting to me. Sort of interesting. Like it does seem to, I think there's an argument out there that the Sphinx might be far older than like is commonly taught. And there's some interesting evidence. That's all I'm going to say. I don't know. That one I don't totally rule out of hand. Like there's some where it's like, give me a fucking break. That's ridiculous. But that one, it's like, I don't know. Okay, I'm very happy with this eye. Now I want to try and get this one to the same place. And then I'll be at a point where I could go further, but I don't think I have to. We'll see. We'll see how I'm feeling. We'll see how much I'm enjoying the sculpting. But yeah, no, by the way, like, even though I can be dismissive of it, and at the end of the day, if you made me bet, do you think the Ark of the Covenant was built out of a meteorite? Like stuff like that. Like I would say, no, I don't think that. But I love it. I love reading about it. I love collecting those sort of weird alternate explanations. It's lots of fun. Lots of fun. I was sort of bummed, like when Da Vinci Code came out, I was sort of out there being like, I was talking about Jesus being married and having kids before it was cool. Like, I love that stuff, but yeah, I would consider myself at the end of the day a skeptic, but I love it. Same with like Bigfoot. Like if I had to bet real money, Gary, if you're right, you win $100 million. And if you're wrong, You're going to live in a cardboard box for the rest of your life. Do you think Bigfoot exists today? Not like even in recent history, but today, are there Sasquatches out there? Barring Squatch in the chat. I would say no. If I had to bet, but it's a soft no. Like, I don't know. And I love the idea. I really love the idea. And I think it's possible. It's possible. I don't know. It's possible. Jim Lujan and I regularly talk about the alien thing. And that, now I feel like it's not even crazy to say anymore, like, oh, we're being visited. Like some of the evidence that's come out, the videos, the testimonials that have come out just in the past few years, you can't dismiss. Like it's, you know, there's something happening. So, Squatch, I believe in you. I believe you're a pain in my ass. Arc of the Kevin. Yeah, I thought that was one of like Graham Hancock's things, maybe. Like back in the day. I don't know if he still thinks that, but I thought there was something, because they were talking about how, like, trying to describe, they're looking at how the ark is described, and some of the stuff about Moses, like his face radiant and having to wear a veil around it and all this. It's like, I think he was trying to do some kind of say like, oh, the ark is radioactive. I don't know. There was a whole thing he was trying to like take very literally. How could we explain this scientifically? And like that to me is like, I mean, I think sometimes those explanations are more complicated than. I'm very much an Occam's razor guy. What is the simplest, most obvious explanation? That's probably right. It's probably it. There are lots of times when like it's not. There are lots of times where the exotic explanation is true, but generally speaking, like, you know. So the problem I'm running into here with these eyes is that I think they're a little asymmetrical in their orbits. So that's something I will probably correct for a little bit when I'm drawing, and it's not a big deal. Most people have some facial asymmetry. I suppose aliens would be the same way. But it's also why kind of an asymmetrical expression might be the way to go with this guy, because it will minimize that morphological reality. What I'm probably going to do in a second as in maybe like in 10 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes, is take a little break for 10 or 15 minutes and then come back and sculpt some more. So this might be a two-parter today, as Josh used to often do, where he'll step away for a little bit and then come back. But I'm kind of enjoying this. And like I said, I'm ahead on my drawing, and I think I can take him a little bit farther. Let's see here. Do you see this? That notch? I want to fill that. But anyway, even though I just sort of criticized elements of the latest Unsolved Mysteries season, they are lots of fun to watch. And I love Unsolved Mysteries, even though a lot of times they're not very mysterious. I remember, I think that first season had the guy who had like some crazy breakdown and threw himself off a building. And they really wanted to make it some kind of a murder. And that's a good example of, I think the simplest explanation is usually the correct one. Okay, I'm noticing, let me see if I can see this in the camera. You see how it's a little more full here than on here? I think I don't like that. I want to shave this down a little bit. Let's see here. Yeah, I think it was way back. Like I said, I think he's kind of changed some of his, by the way, hi Dee. I think his like arguments and his beliefs have sort of morphed over the years, but I remember, I'm trying to remember the name of the book. I could find it if I went through his Amazon thing. This was a long time ago. He's been around forever. And there was something kind of, he had some sort of exotic Ark of the Covenant supposition. Jim, I love the photo you posted of your granddad. Would you mind if I drew it? That's nice. That would be fun. No, the entities in DvsM do not have nostrils and do not have ear holes. For reasons. Again, DvsM 5. The most we'll ever learn about the aliens will be in DvsM 5. So do some trading. It sounds like pioneer days. Gotta go down to the outpost. Get myself some hardtack. You know, I think you need, it's the sculpting. You have to kind of be in a, it's easy. Like I've been talking about, it's little things, little adjustments, little movements. You gotta, there's a zen, there's a like, you're gently ushering it to where you want it to be. You can't, it has to be kind of, you know, little happy alien. There's no mistakes with this guy, just happy accidents. Yeah, I'm definitely seeing this fullness on the side now. As I'm getting it closer, I'm seeing that asymmetry. So I'm gonna rather than carve it, which I think might be too dramatic, I'm gonna see if I can just sort of push it around and get it where I want it. That might be better. Getting there. What time is it? I'm gonna go till 12:40. And then I'm gonna take a break, 15 or 20 minutes, and then I'll be back. So I'm not gonna leave this running. I mean, I guess I could, but that's kind of weird. Actually, no, I won't, because I'm free StreamYard. There's an hour limit per. Yeah, Dee Dee, that's the one. Sign in the seal. I think that was the one. I could be misremembering. It's been like 1,000 years since I've read it, but I vaguely, because I can't think of what other book I would have read that would have gone down that path. Is that also the one, Dee Dee? Maybe you've read it more recently. Is that the one where he was talking about how? I'm trying to remember here. I thought he was drawing some kind of connection between Pharaoh Akhenaten and Moses and there was something like trying to connect all that, because Akhenaten did have a vaguely, again, I don't know if I buy into this, but this is sort of the thing when it's like unconventional readings of history. Like it's, Akhenaten was this kind of a strange monotheistic sun worshipping pharaoh who's very unusual and not into this sort of polytheistic, not as polytheistic as like the average Egyptian at the time. And so I think Hancock wanted to draw some sort of line between Akhenaten and the like Semitic, you know, the early Jewish peoples and Moses, and connect those. I vaguely remember something like that. Maybe you remember more, but like it was something like that. But like I said, I used to love that stuff. I still find it fascinating, but I don't seek out like all the books like I might have in the past. But how's he looking? This kid looking more refined, right? I mean, it's still very simple, but like I'm starting to see an alien there. Seals? No, seals are not. I'm not going to spoil my top 5 animal list, but seals are not on it. But I think I do have my 5. As usual, I have my top 2 like locked. I know what those are. And now it's trying to decide like who makes 3, 4, 5. Okay. I'm going to step away for a little while. Oh, I just, with my fingernail, took a notch out of his head. How bad is it? This is what I'm talking about. Like, firmer clay wouldn't have been so bad. I don't even see it, but that's alarming when that happens. I should trim my nails on my break. And then I will come back. We'll do a little bit more sculpting and chatting. And then when I've decided I have at least either taken my abilities as far as they can go, my, again, modest sculpting abilities as far as they can go, or don't want to take any more time away from drawing and need to get back to it, I will pencils down this thing. But in the meantime, here, let's see if we can. I'm trying to get it to autofocus. You know what? Again, as an amateur sculptor, it's not bad. That's not bad. I'm not ready to do portraits. Like I said, a human face would be much harder. There's a little, I gotta smooth all that out. But I can live with that. I'm just checking angles, checking lighting. I think that kind of works. Okay. Let's see what's going on in the chat. And then when I take a break, I will be back later. I'll send out another announcement on Facebook when I'm ready to get going. Let's see what my glasses. I'm being very careful with what I touch right now because my hands are all oily from oil-based clay. Okay, what do we look? Let's see here. I don't either. I remember roughly. I think maybe the most exotic ones, which is why I kind of remember like radioactive Arks of the Covenant and Akhenaten being sort of a proto Moses. Maybe he even suggested that Akhenaten, I don't think he went this far, but maybe it was even something like Akhenaten could have been Moses or could have been like I don't know. It was a weird, he was definitely drawing a connection between those two, which even as someone who's overall skeptical, and more like with an archaeology background and a comparative religion background and everything, not totally crazy. Like it's interesting, at least. I don't think there's a lot of research for it, but it's interesting to say that Akhenaten, like maybe there was this rise of like the idea of a monotheistic faith, and like Akhenaten got kind of intrigued by that, whether he was specifically interested in like Judeo faiths or whether it was just like that was maybe like kind of an idea that was sweeping through that part of the world at the time. Like maybe he kind of made his own version. I don't know. It's sort of interesting, I guess. Yeah. Yes. Well, it's definitely in the running. So not Didi, great minds think alike, maybe. I have 2 top 5 suggestions planned for so the way we normally do it, we go through the top 5. Jim picked animals. We're going to do animals, and at the end of each episode, we ambush the other one with like, this is what we're doing next time. Top 5 books is one of the 2 I've been considering, and even if we don't do top 5 books, it's definitely one I want to do, because as people might be able to tell, this is like I love books. I love to read. Unfortunately, I'm in a phase of my life where I like buying books more than reading them. But I can very easily talk, like top 5 books is one of those things, just like top 5 movies or something, where it would be very difficult for me, because it's like, oh, I want to pick like 25. Like, how can I narrow it down? So that would definitely be in there. But maybe after top 5 animals, but if not, certainly in the near future, because that's one that I would like to get to. Okay, I'm going to take a break. I will be back probably, like I said, like 20 minutes or something. So have a good, if I don't see you again, have a good weekend. Have a good creative. Yeah, no, I'd be excited to do it, but also like I would need like a week to really think about that. Like really, but off the top of my head already, there's some that just immediately jump in. I don't know if we'd want to narrow like fiction and nonfiction, or just books, which that gets to be a nightmare. I don't know. I have to think about that. But okay, I hope I'll see some or all of you in, like I said, about 20 minutes. If not, have a good creative weekend. Thanks for the distraction while I sat here with... I wish he focused better. Yeah, he's kind of glowing right now. He looks like the cocoon alien. Come on. Where is... Okay, anyway. Yeah, I think we'd have to. And if we had to, I think I'd want to open with fiction. Top 5 fiction. I think so. Like nonfiction. Look, I would love to talk top 5 nonfiction, but maybe this isn't a thing to really worry about. I would be concerned. It could end up very like academic and heady, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but like, do people want to watch? I don't know. I don't know what our audience, like we've been doing like movie villains and animals and fast food. Like, do we now want to say like top 5 nonfiction books? And I'm talking about, like, I don't know. So probably fiction first. But yeah, he'll be around at least, like I said, until I'm done drawing him in the comic, which is the next few weeks. And then I'll probably be a little attached where I won't want to carve him up. But he's not, again, this will never dry. So like he's not going to become a family heirloom. Like even if I try to keep him forever, eventually he's going to collect dust. I mean, it's clay. He's going to look grody. Or, I'll be like moving something and he'll knock over and splat. And that'll be that. So he's not long for this world, but I'll enjoy him while he lasts. Yeah, but that's, top 5 is about our personal picks. And I think that's part of the fun of it is, I hope, people like learning a little bit about us by what we're picking. But then also they feel like they can participate more because they're thinking about, well, what do they like? It's not, we never want to do, first of all, there are 2 big rules. I think Jim would agree. First of all, we never want to go negative. It's always going to be top 5 favorite things. It's never going to be like the worst 5, or like 5 things we hate. Like that'll never. It's always going to be 5 things we love. Second, I think it's important if you keep it personal, viewers, they feel more invited to participate. Because it's not about like, these are the 5 best things. Sit down if you disagree. Like these are my 5 favorite things, you know, my 5 favorite foods, whatever. And it's like, of course, like no one's confronted by that. No one's like feeling attacked by that. And they feel more that they can say like, well, here are my 5, and they can share them. And that's fun. Like Jim and I love it most when there's people in the chat sharing their things, even if it's not things we would have picked, because it's fun just to see, you know, people talk about the things they like. Let's see here. I know. It's embarrassing. I never would have guessed that until I really started like, which are the 5? And it's like, and to be honest, so the Double Shack burger was my favorite burger. If I couldn't pick that, if we decided that wasn't fast food, it was probably going to be the In-N-Out Double Double. And if for some reason I didn't want to pick that, you know what my 3rd favorite is? It's a Big Mac. Big Mac's great. I love a Big Mac. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't expect McDonald's to be so represented because I think of myself as a little bit of a foodie. But, you know, I mean, come on. A sausage and egg McMuffin? You can't beat that. And I know I got some heat for the pancakes, but I love them. That's top 5. What do you like? Don't try to be cool. Don't try to pick the best. Pick the ones you actually like. Be honest. So, see, yeah, pizza. We decided that wasn't fast food. So, which was hotly debated, believe me. Okay, now I'm gonna go. I will be back in 15 or 20 minutes. Take care, everybody. Hope to see you then.